Hey boys, it's me again. Hello. Probably a short one today. I feel like chilling out a bit. I just want to remind you guys I've got a Twitter. I like watching my small follower count grow because the value on my YouTube channel obviously is very bloated by the content I've done in the past, so it's not a good metric for how many people are interested in the series, for instance. So if you like the stuff I've been putting out now, I'd very much appreciate all the followers I could get on Twitter, all the likes as well, obviously. I also want to give a quick nod to this guy Aki, former Realm YouTuber as well. There's something about Realm YouTubers and games development, but this guy's also working on an RPG, and like you can see from these two pictures, his art is real neato, so I definitely recommend checking him out for how good his project looks. It's bloody criminal how few followers he has. I'm a big fan of his stuff. And I also want to extend the invitation to viewers. If you guys are working on any projects, video projects or games, it doesn't necessarily have to be games. If you're like a small time YouTuber and you've got a series going or there's something you're trying, please let me know because I will check it out. I really enjoy learning about other stuff that my viewers are doing. Cool, man. Enjoy the vid. Bye. Cool. In terms of work, I've been doing miscellaneous fixes. I'm pretty burnt out from doing a lot of the menu stuff, but I think... Wait a minute. Back to the project. I'm going to run it. Today I've been doing miscellaneous stuff. I'm pretty burnt out from the work on the menus. If you were very attentive just now, you probably saw the first tiny thing I did. Woo! It's got like a tiny little fade in as the menu opens. I could reverse it when I close it. That's the only instance of this effect. If I go into a thing, it doesn't do anything, but there are options to add little nice effects like that. Another subtle thing I did is with the cursor. So up until now, you had to do like a hard press to navigate the options, but now I can hold it down and it's got like a slight ramp up, so if I hold it, you can see it holds on that next option for a bit and then it speeds up. So we've got some controls. It just makes the menu feel much more natural, much nicer, and it doesn't interrupt how fast I can press either. I'll go into a menu that has me select a player, so I'll select gamer here, and with the arrow keys, which are basically my substitute for right shoulder and left shoulder right now, I can go straight between the characters. So if I give Henez some equipment like that, you can see I can go between them, but I can't go between them if I'm in this menu. I can only do it here. Cool. Maybe a little shake up effect or something would be nice as I shoulder these, because other than the name changing, it's very subtle. Next thing I did was in the item pouch, I actually got the multi-directional movement stuff working. So if you remember before, I can still go through them one at a time. This is me repeatedly pressing right. Unsure if I want, say, if I hit right here for it to go to the next one like it does, or if I want it to go here. But I think the important thing is, and obviously all of my menus have the same cursor movement ruling. Very cool, very cool. I think the only other thing I've done is if I go into battle. Whee! Well, I was going to say that the rows reflect actually changing them. Oh, I can attack. So it looks like weapon damage is being applied. But I'm going to escape out of this because there's no other way to end the battle yet, except for winning the battle or closing the game. What I was meant to do is if I go to attributes, not attributes, if I go to formation, I change some of the formation around, I'll like swap some of the positions around as well. You can see there, positionally, they've got 3 distinct rows, you can see that. And they should maintain that position after the attacks, they do. I've had suggestions or people wanting these battle sprites to be bigger, I believe, and it is very likely now that I've put these in, or I've had them in for a while, it would be nice to have bigger player sprites, so I might end up having distinct world sprites and battle sprites, because it has the same problem as I had when I originally had the battlefield just created out of the world tiles, is that it didn't seem enough like a different scene. I want it to be kind of like the world view is kind of like a bird's eye thing, but then when you're in battle you're kind of more close up, and I think having bigger sprites represents that better. Obviously Final Fantasy always did that, so that will probably be my guide for what I could do. So it'll probably be a while before I make changes to any of this stuff looking, like the Warcraft's a bit weird, the weapon being like a floating entity. The purpose of all of that is just so that it doesn't require me actually changing these sprites, because I don't want to give these really nice attack animations if I'm just going to replace them anyway. So I'm going to stay back from doing that for a while. Yeah, that'll be a project for later. You can see that almost everyone hits for zeros now because it's actually using the weapon damage. So if I haven't given them a weapon, they do 0 damage, which means I'm stuck. Except Henez, I believe he was actually attacking for damage. But yeah, what I'm in the middle of now is, since we just did a bunch of work on all of the menus, I've got a lot more tools at my disposal, and a lot of ground rules have been set. For instance, like attributes on all the players, and by extension the enemies soon, and equipment information, item information. Means I can go back into battle, start making the connections to the attributes and the actions, and they'll actually be semblances of gameplay then, you know, the equipment changing will affect combat. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do now. So I'll cut this, see what I can get done. Dab. Hey, it's me again. I haven't got much more to show, but I will show off what I can. Get into battle here, and boom, I've got this pop-up. Beware, a large group of monsters draws near. It's a bit of a corny line, but the idea is I can, for each encounter, I can customize that line. You'll notice now I've got my Coral Guard enemies in, and that required a bit of how the cursor works to change a little bit in battle here. It was only tailored for 1x1 enemies, which are what these imps are, the smallest form of enemy I intend, whereas these enemies actually have a width of 2. You can kind of see them how their size compares with the imp. They take up 2 slots. The maximum slots is 2 down and 6 across so far. I had to make these guys just a touch smaller to fit them in. Originally I had the layout so that you can see in the first battle videos, but I had imps that could stack up to 3 in one bit, in one vertical column, but I went against that. Yeah, another consequence of changing how the cursors work is, well, that's going to do nothing, but if I use flame, boom, does a lot of damage. It won't hover over the empty tiles anymore. See, I can't get to it. In general, it's smarter about where you want to navigate your cursor, which is important because you'll be doing a lot of cursor navigation as you play the game. You can see I haven't aligned the spell effects properly for the bigger enemy. Great, that's all I have really to show off visually for now. Most of the work I've been doing is I've been laying out the if I go to enemies here, I've been laying out the details for the enemies. I'm starting to get stats rolling. You can see here I've actually got an enumerator for my enemies. So far there's only Imp and Coral, those are the 2 enemies. And I give them names and stuff. And one thing I've been working on is giving them these stat curves here, you can see. And all these numbers, you can see for the Imp it's all 1s, but for the Coral Guard there's some more variety. Those are going to work as multipliers for the enemies to determine what their final stats are. And their stats are determined by those curves in combination with the difficulty level of the area that you're in. So as the game gets more difficult, if I reuse enemies for whatever reason, they won't have hard values that I've manually inputted for all of them. Rather, they will have their stats generated by these multipliers that I put in. So for example, the first index here, 1, is the curve for HP max, and you can see the difference between the Imp and the Coral Guard is the Imp has 1, the Coral Guard has 4, which means regardless at what point the game you're up to, if Imps and Coral Guards spawn in that area, the Coral Guard will have 4 times as much health as the Imp, whatever that value is. Great. And then since I've started getting the enemies sorted out, I've been able to organize them into encounter groups. An encounter is just like the group of enemies you just saw. That was this last one, which is called Coral 3 Imp 5, because I had 3 of the guards, 5 of the imps. And you can see by these strings that what showed at the start of the battle, I can give them whatever text I want. The one that you just saw was the lamest line I had, but these other 3 are very, very standard, you know. So that just gives the fight a bit of flavor. And adding enemies to this is very easy. After I give them an index and set the encounter text, depending on what enemies I want in the encounter. For instance, Coral 1 Imp 2 is going to have, first I add enemy Coral, I add 1 of them. Imp, I add 2 of them. And so that means it'll be a fight with, you guessed it, 1 Coral Guard and 2 imps. And the order that I add them to the encounter determines the order that they will be placed from back to right, top to bottom. So that's another thing I did, is when the enemies spawn, they use up what I've called spots, enemy spots, which is, if you imagine like the grid layout that we used in earlier episodes in the Photoshop document to lay out the enemies. We go down the encounter, we go down the size of the encounter, we grab the enemy count for the specific enemy that we're going to spawn next, and then we just keep looping through and spawning them in whatever spots are available, and we go down and to the right starting from the back of the encounter, and that's how we fill up all the slots. Because of all of this, I don't have to manually give X and Y coordinates on that mini grid to position the enemies. Great, well that's all I've really done. I'm going to cut it here, and I'll catch you guys next episode. Have a good one, fellas. Bye.